Chip. Is it just the two of us tonight?
I'm here.
Oops. Hello.
Hi, Dave.
How are you doing, Jeff?
Marginally better than yesterday.
Physically or emotionally or what? All of the above?
Trying to get rid of this cough.
Is it really?
It's pretty bad.
Is it just like a real phlegmy thing or just kind of a dry, raspy? What is it?
The doctor told me that this is pretty common. Like my throat is irritated. And the prognosis is weeks of coughing, and that's not a good prognosis for me. So we're trying to figure out how to manage that.
Yeah, I bet. Everybody else doing well? Karen, Bobby, how are you guys doing? I'm a little chilly back here, but other than that, I'm all right.
Like you're in her grandmother's bedroom.
It's an attic.
I'll have you know, Dave, I just walked off of the back patio where it was nice and sunny, and I was in shorts.
Well, I haven't seen shorts except for the ones I put on before I put on my pants lately. It is chilly back here. I got up yesterday morning. Yesterday morning was 7. Today it actually went up to 34. It's drizzled for just a moment, then it turned to snowflakes again. Crazy. Yeah. Everybody says, aren't you glad you don't live back there? I actually love the miserable weather. Gives you a sense of reality every once in a while. You know, you can't just all be sunny and warm all the time, can you?
Yeah.
I don't want to know the answer.
Only in Oz.
I think there's another storm on the way there, isn't there?
Yeah, I was hearing there is, but I don't know if it'll make it here or not. Karen, you do always look like you're freezing there. Could Hugo possibly sprinkle a little bit more expenditure on the utilities? My God, you look like you're calling in from Juneau, Alaska. You should be here with me.
Well, I don't heat this part of my house.
No. Maybe you could broadcast from another room. Maybe it'd be warmer.
Maybe you need to install a wood-burning fireplace in that part of your house, Karen.
I think maybe you can step outside and warm up.
It keeps me awake.
Well, I hope that's not a commentary on the meeting.
I thought Bob Harari was here to do that.
Mayor, Councilmember Tice just called me. I'm not sure if she's having difficulty getting in.
I had a little difficulty myself, Chip, actually. I had to do it twice.
I don't see her yet.
It was a little different this time. When you clicked on the thing to join, it gave you another page first, and then you had to click on it again.
I had a little difficulty earlier, but then I called Ashley and realized it was a 4:30 meeting, not a 3:30 meeting. So it helped out.
I wish it was a 3:30 meeting.
I thought it was. Partly on your benefit.
Karen, you're all right. This is an attic. It is a converted room on the upstairs floor of the 1830 Colonial in a square in Hingham, Massachusetts. It was it's a classic, really. I'm overlooking the street right down below, which was completely snow covered 24 hours ago. It was impossible to get in and out of the parking lot this morning because the trucks were moving all the excess snow out. Incredible.
Even with that beast of a car you have back there?
I finally got the damn thing registered today, Bobby. It took me 5 trips to the RMV. Then I get there and they said, oh, by the way, you've got to go down and get a new annual certificate, where they actually go in and test the vehicle for safety and everything. Not just a smog check, but all safety. They got to have insured everything. I get down there. Guy says, Mr. Potter, you need 2 front tires and the rear view mirrors cracked. And I thought, wait a minute, that's not the case at all. Took it to another place. Took it in there. Guy said, 2 cars flying. There. Every once in a while, somebody's trying to make a buck off us.
Sort of makes you miss the East Coast, doesn't it?
Richard, if it isn't about the deal, I don't know what it is. You know,
Mr. Mayor, it looks like Councilmember Tice is here now.
Gary, welcome. And lose the scowl. There you go.
That's my thinking face. It's ugly.
Gary, welcome.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on, but I'm usually, as Ashley says, an A+ student, but I don't know what happened. All right.
We all had some difficulty accessing. So with Carrie's arrival, I now think we can convene.
478-72.
Jack Galante, if you can mute your phone, it'd be much appreciated.
Yep.
All righty. I'll try once again to call to order the normal Tuesday, February 1st, 2022 meeting of the Carmel-by-the-Sea City Council. Could I get a roll call, please?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Barron.
Here.
Councilmember Ferlito.
Here.
Councilmember Tice.
Finally, here.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards.
Here.
And Mayor Potter.
Hi, here.
We have a
Yeah,
quorum.
Gosh, let me just take a minute to welcome you to the county, to the city for a while. You're our interim city clerk, and I know you've been doing a good job. Been tutelaged by Ashley Wright, which is great. So really appreciate you being here. I know the council's glad to have you aboard. So welcome aboard.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. All right, so under extraordinary business, let me first announce we're going to have a presentation in recognition of Carmel-by-the-Sea as a certified blue city by Project Health. Chip, did you want to introduce this and then we go on to Agnes?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, thank Agnes and the team for putting this application together. And again, Agnes will introduce the presenter, but just another great piece of work by especially Agnes and the rest of the staff who put this application together. And it's another feather in our environmental cap, if you will, Mr. Mayor. So Agnes, do you want to introduce the speaker, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chip. So I am here to introduce Evelina Marchetti and Allison Amrine of the Blue City Network. Evelina and Allison helped us with the application process so that we could become the first certified blue city in Monterey County. And here is the certificate. So everyone can see that. And just a little bit of background, the Blue City Network is a certification program that recognizes cities and counties that demonstrate a commitment to protecting our oceans and waterways. And this really was a group effort of all the departments of the city, regional efforts, as well as our volunteer groups to receive this certification. And as part of the Blue City Network, we will continue to collaborate with other cities in the county to protect our marine environment. So Evelina and Allison are here to present the honor, and I will turn it over to them now. Oop, Evelina, you're muted.
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you, Mayor Potter and distinguished members of the City Council. We are excited to be here tonight to congratulate Carmel-by-the-Sea as our newest certified blue city. Our team is very pleased to welcome your quaint and beautiful seaside town into our network. Carmel's rugged coastline inspires and enthralls both its residents and visitors. It's not a surprise that the city ranks among the America's Best Beach Towns. We are proud to recognize Carmel as a committed community that is dedicated to protecting their marine environment and waterways. Carmel-by-the-Sea impressively scored 375 out of 500 points on the certification assessment, placing them in the Ocean Champion tier. The certification process involves completing a detailed assessment form that evaluates the city's current and ongoing environmental initiatives and programs. The assessment is divided into 4 solution areas, which are waste minimization, climate protection and community resilience, water quality and efficiency, and healthy ecosystems. We use a data-driven approach to assess each city's progress in marine environmental protections. Achieving Blue City certification allows communities to credibly and transparently track their progress towards overall sustainability objectives. And now I will pass it over to Allison, our Chief City Liaison, who gave personalized support to the city throughout their certification process. She will share more about Carmel's Blue City accomplishments.
Thank you, Evelina. It's an honor to be here celebrating Carmel-by-the-Sea's great success in becoming a certified Blue City. Carmel has demonstrated amazing leadership and dedication to protecting their exquisite marine environment and fragile water ecosystems. I'd like to point out a few of the major accomplishments that assisted Carmel in gaining the Blue City recognition. Achieving residential waste diversion rates near 70%, one of the highest in Monterey County. Establishing a dedicated climate committee consisting of city council members, city staff, and members of the public. And they are responsible for assessing climate change threats and challenges as they relate to Carmel's community and utilizing input from experts and local constituents to develop actionable plans and mitigate climate change threats. Also, over the past 3 years, the city has installed more than 800 energy efficient LED light fixtures in nearly every city-owned building. Carmel participates in the Monterey Regional Stormwater Management's First Flush and Snapshot Day events. Both of these events utilize volunteers to collect stormwater samples and assess local water quality. And Carmel has been persistent with the restoration and upkeep of the Mission Trail Nature Preserve, home to the endemic Monterey pine forest, coastal prairie and arroyo willow bogs, wetlands, and habitat area for threatened and endangered animal species. And finally, the town has impressively implemented stringent dark sky guidelines and has shown exceptional dedication to the preservation of the night sky. The residential streets of Carmel are fully dark after hours, with only a handful of safety streetlights at a few key intersections. So as now part of the Blue City Network, Carmel will continue to receive support from us and our nonprofit partners to further elevate the health of the ocean and the city's residents. The city joins a growing community of other certified Blue Cities in California. Through this program, Carmel-by-the-Sea serves as a model to other cities and can rightly assist many other towns and cities looking to advance their own environmental initiatives. And so as we wrap up, we'd like to give a special shout out to Agnes and Bob, who served as our contact persons for the program and who worked diligently to get their city certified. So on behalf of myself and Evelina, the team at Project O, congratulations again, and thank you, Mayor Potter and members of the City Council and public for your time.
Thank you so much for the recognition, honestly. Sometimes we forget all the things we do in this town. The synopsis that's attached here, that you just went through, is very impressive. And sometimes we just don't realize how much we've done. I mean, the work that's been done by the Climate Committee has been incredible. The number of meetings they've held, the outreach they've done for a city of our size, very impressive that we received this kind of recognition. Can't thank you enough, honestly. Is there anybody else wishing to speak from council? All right, guys. Well, look, I mean it. We get these recognitions randomly. This one really means a lot to us, especially when there's so many climate-related issues that are so, dependent, or so important to the general health of the world. We just, as a small community, to find out we've been doing this much, I don't know if we'd have realized it if you hadn't come forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here and present this to you, and we're happy to welcome Carmel into the network.
Well, we're the ones that are honored. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, we can leave that received. Thank you again. We'll move on to then public appearances. It's an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. 3-minute limitation to that testimony. Anybody wishing to speak, please do so. State your name for the record. I'd appreciate that. Floor is open. Yashin, if you would go ahead and monitor the public, I'd appreciate that. Looks
Yes,
like
Miss.
Beth has your hand up.
Yes.
I do. Are we ready? Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, city staff, and members of the public. My name is Beth Bowman. I'm the Managing Director of Sunset Cultural Center, and I'm here to summarize my report to the city for the first half of our fiscal year. Sunset Center continues to welcome the community to live events with the same COVID safety protocols implemented when we reopened in September 2021. We check vaccination cards or negative PCR tests within 72 hours and require masks to be worn indoors by everyone. Based on our utilization numbers, users are willing to abide by the protocols. In the North Wing, we had 132 events with 8,440 attendees. And the Sunset Theater held 67 events with 10,620 attendees. Financially, the half-year mark shows our income at $2.35 million, which is 85% of our annual revenue budget. And expenses were $818,000 and 35% of our annual expense budget. I'll also share that we welcomed our new production manager in December, and he began working right away with our team on the theater upgrade project. To date, the theater upgrade project has raised $520,000, in turn removing $395,000 from our portion of the 5-year CIP. We look forward to collaborating on the planning for the next 5 years. This covers new theatrical lights, drapery, a video projector, which have already been installed, new house lights, and a new sound system, which will be installed later this year. Mark your calendars. Coming up in February, we have quite a few events. The February 6th, Carmel Music Society will be here. February 19th and 20th, the Monterey Symphony. February 23rd, Sunset Presents brings Ailey 2, the dance company, and that will also be a part of our Classroom Connections with a matinee for students. February 25th, the comedian Brian Regan will be here. February 26th, Chamber Music Monterey Bay. And February 27th, Youth Music Monterey with their second concert. New shows are added all the time, so please keep an eye on our website. Join our Ease newsletter to stay up to date. I thank you for your support, and I look forward to seeing you at the Sunset Center soon.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Well done. Anybody else wishing to speak tonight?
I see no other speakers, Mayor.
Whoa.
Mr. Richard Kreitman, go ahead.
Hello, Richard Kreitman. Let me get Mayor, Council, and Community. I'm afraid we may have missed something during last month's approval of the recording studio in the old China Art Building, a conversion and use I hardly approve of, but it has to do with the rooftop deck that was also approved. I agreed with Councilperson's Theis response to Councilperson's Ferlito question of whether or not there should be hours of operation of the studio to spare surrounding residences and inns from the noise disturbance. And Carrie pointed out, it's a soundproof recording studio. Sound isn't supposed to get in or out, and all-night recording sessions are part of the music business. But when those artists take a break at 2:30 in the morning, if they go up on that deck for a breath of fresh air and a beer and a smoke, they will be within a few feet of sleeping residents in their apartments and guests at the Cypress Inn. And we just alighted over this potential public nuisance. Fortunately, it turns out we do have a applicable city ordinance, which I would read short. 8.56090 residential units in commercial district. Noise generated by or from business operations or about business premises between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 p.m. which noise can be heard inside apartments, condominiums, or other residential units, and is of a character which prevents a reasonable person of normal sensitiveness from quietly enjoying the premises, including sleeping therein, is deemed to be Class D noise and is prohibited. And then a bunch of code numbers. That is very quaintly stated. So bad behavior on the rooftop terrace will be prohibited by code. That's good, but I would recommend that the future operators of the recording studio are made expressly aware of this community standard at the earliest opportunity and are strictly held to it when they go into operation. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Richard. I appreciate it. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight?
Mr. Mayor, it's David Fink.
Welcome, Mr. Fink.
Thank you, Mayor Potter, City Council members. I've almost over the finish line to move into our new place on Dolores Street. And I want to bring up an issue that we discovered about 5 years ago when the new Masters Gallery building caught on fire next to the Continental Luca building. And thankfully, there was a response of 7 engines that night that put the fire out, and our building didn't burn down, and my business was affected that night, but we got back open the next day. But Mr. Mayor, as you know, as City Manager Rierig knows, as Planning Director Swanson knows, and Jermel knows, we have a terrible water pressure issue on Dolores Street and many other streets in Carmel. And for our house project, because we had to install a huge fire system, I had Cal-Am come out and measure the water pressure at the street, which is 25 PSI. At our meter, it's 22. The legal limit is 40 PSI for California. And I would just ask, Mr. Mayor, that we put this on the agenda for future discussion, because Cal-Am is taking advantage of us, I feel, here, and they've got to upgrade their system because it's a life safety issue. And I think it's very, very important to get on a future City Council agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. We'll take those comments under submission. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Kenny Spielfogel has his hand up.
Yes, hi, good evening. I just want to appreciate Jeff for putting together, Jeff Barron, to put together the meetings that I attended, 4 local meetings. I learned a lot about what locals and residents would like to have happen in our community. I think the process is very important, and there's so many things that have in the, and I am a resident now, so I must say, I think that a lot of the processes that, locals objected to, actually in the meetings, they weren't objected to. So there's a lot of misinformation that's coming, maybe even down the pike to our council and mayor. And I think with these open meetings, I think a lot of stuff is disclosed, and I really appreciate Jeff for doing this. I don't necessarily agree with Jeff, but I do appreciate that he is having these meetings.
Thank you, Kenny. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Last call.
I'll go. This is Nancy Toomey. And I just wanted to quickly thank Chip and Maxine for hosting the Chief of Police input session for residents and the like. We, I think, gave some good inputs for their consideration. Could have already been on the list, but of criteria that they were looking for. But it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to chime in on that really critical hire for the city. So thanks, city leadership, for hosting that session. Great, thanks much.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for your participation. Is there anybody else wishing to speak?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello,
can.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor Potter and council members. I'm Alessandra Dramob, and I'm calling regarding the Verizon lawsuit. The community strongly supports the unanimous decisions of the Planning Commission and City Council in 2021 to deny Verizon's application for a permit to construct a cell tower on Carmelo Street. We encourage the city to resolutely defend the decisions and to stand firm in the lawsuit Verizon has filed against the city. In the filing, Verizon alleges that the city failed to provide written notice of the December 7th City Council decision to uphold the Planning Commission's decision and deny Verizon's appeal. We ask the city to provide us an explanation as to whether there is merit or truth to Verizon's allegation and to present to the community the city's side of the matter. This Verizon lawsuit not only affects the city, but it has direct financial and consequential impact on the residents of Carmel-by-the-Sea. A significant number of us spent considerable time, money, and energy in this effort, and we expect accountability from our leaders. We also ask to be kept informed and apprised of developments in the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Last and final call. Already hearing no one, I'll close the public comment period and move on to announcements. It'll be City Administrator first. Chip, what's new?
I have a few things, not the least of which is to respond. Mr. Fink is exactly correct. I don't traditionally respond to public comments, but council members, I will talk to you about the CalAm system, which comes from the north and the south and unfortunately meets right at 7th there. So there is long been water pressure issues in that area, but we can talk about that during our individual updates. I wanted to welcome Ms. Abbas. Yashin Abbas is our acting interim city clerk. Please, everyone, be gentle and kind while she learns our quirky systems here and our quirky personalities like mine. But please be kind to her. Welcome, Yashin, for joining us. I wanted to thank Ashley and Leslie. I mean, Ashley is, she basically runs the place, as you know, and she's stepped back into she had stepped back in as acting city clerk when Britt left last autumn, and she did a wonderful job. Thank you, Ashley, for taking that on and for stewarding and mentoring Yashin as she gets up to speed. Ashley is vigilantly working on reopening the library, hopefully in early March. I'll tell you a little bit about the recruitments that we have in place in a second, Mr. Mayor. I also wanted to thank everyone. I did have COVID. I'm now COVID negative. So patient 0 in my household was my lovely wife. I was patient number 1, and I think our son is patient number 2. I am COVID negative from the testing perspective and symptom free, but I wanted to thank everyone for their patience. I was out, partially out for a couple of partial days last week, and I wanted to thank everyone for their patience with me. I talked about the library, Mr. Mayor. On recruitments, I promised to come on a monthly basis. So since our last meeting, we have 2 new employees, a tree care specialist and a maintenance worker. They'll be starting next week. We have 1 conditional offer out. We have 8 recruitments that are closed and are in different stages of the recruitment process. That's the interview process. I know that Brandon and Jermel had interviews this week for building inspector, and we've got 4 new active recruitments being posted. In the library, Ashley tells me that they're going to be in the second round of interviews for several positions next week, and a first round for another position in the library next week as well. And then lastly, I did want to tell you there is our pilot project, our beautification project. You know, we heard a lot about beautification. So with our partners, Carmel Cares and the Median Minders, we did embark on the beautification of our first median island. It's the Ocean Island median island between Monteverde and Lincoln. That has been remodeled. I think it looks beautiful. We've received 0 feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. So we have listed a survey on the front page of our website. Please take a look at the median island and tell us what you think. Please be brutally honest. We think it looks beautiful. Bob got some boulders in there. We trimmed up the skirts of the cypress. I think it looks very handsome. So please, got a whole bunch of new plants in. The irrigation system is fixed, so please don't trample on it. But we do want your opinions. Again, front page of the city website. It's a quick 3 or 4 question survey. Please tell us what you think. And that's what I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the extra time tonight, Mr. Sir.
No problem. Appreciate the input. Thank you. City Attorney Brian Pierrick, anything to report out?
Actually, we had two closed sessions yesterday. One was a conference with real property negotiators regarding the Forest Theater lease, and the other was a conference with labor negotiators, and there is no reportable action for either of those items.
Brian, council members, anything to report or announce?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jeff, I think.
Thank you. In Chip's spirit, I think a lot of people know that I also had the dreaded COVID. I'm also obviously disease-free, but not symptom-free. I have significant issues with my throat, and I would tell everybody this is not something you want to get. So I would urge everybody to be safe and as cautious as you possibly can. You really don't want to take a chance of having things go wrong. I do have my typical monthly announcement at a climate change meeting on February 17th, where we will finally be seeing first drafts of our adaptation and action plans, and we'll be talking about what changes we might want to make, talking to staff about possible changes before we trot them out on the road via public outreach again, with a goal of, I think, bringing it to the city council in, I can't remember, I think it's May. I think it's the May meeting where we're scheduled to come back to the council. But of particular note that I would like to emphasize is me and a couple of other members of the council, of the committee, will be doing outreach to the building industry. There are a number of things, and especially in the climate, a number of things in both plans, but especially in the climate action plan, that will have fairly significant impacts on the building industry. And we will be trotting those out for public comment, for sort of industry review and whatnot. Probably my guess is we will do that during the month of March. So you industry professionals that are in the construction trades and equivalent real estate, or however it is, we'll be doing more notification of this, but please pay special attention to what we say, what we present. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else?
I'll go, Mayor.
Yes, Bobby.
Yeah, since Chip had mentioned the median and Carmel Cares and Dale and that group, anyway, I just wanted to let you know I signed up for my first median, and so I'm all ready to go and look forward to working with Carmel Cares on the cul-de-sac on the street that I live on. So, and that's on Santa Fe Street. So perhaps maybe next month I'll do the Zoom meeting from in the garden.
Excellent thought, Bobby. Anybody else? I guess I would just like to comment on Ashley's quasi-retirement from clerk du jour. Ashley, I really appreciate your team approach to the way you do business here. I know we're not an easy group to manage. I know we get a lot of questions, a lot of demands. You've done a great job over the course of time. Somebody who's doing 3 jobs at once really is being over above the call of duty. So I want to thank you so much for what you've done. You've done it with a esprit de corps, a sense of humor, and suffered us our weird quirkiness as well. So thank you so much. That said, unless there's any other comments, I would then move on then to the consent calendar. There's 7 items on the consent. Staff, I understand there's an interest in continuing item number 7, or a recommendation for that.
Yes, Chairman.
Chip or Brandon, do you want to speak to that?
Brandon, let me just say thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would like to continue that item. We got some really good input from Councilmember Ferlito, and we'd like you to authorize her informally to work directly with us as we kind of broaden the scope of the Winter and Associates contract. We'll bring it back in March, but it needs some tuning, and we got some, again, really good input. Brandon and I did from Councilmember Ferlito. Brandon, how did I cover that? Okay.
Yep, that was great, Chip. I don't have anything to add.
All right. Well, specifically the item of the continuance, because it would take a motion to do so. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to speak to this item? If not, why don't we bring that forward, then move continuance of item number 7.
Mr. Mayor, it looks like Neil Cruz has his hand up.
Yeah.
His physical hand up.
Assuming you can hear me.
I can see you quite well, too.
Yeah, thanks. I had to spend an hour in the bathroom. I just want to thank all of you for putting this together. Chip Rarig, Brandon, the City Council. This was initiated by the residents of Carmel. And I look at the work and the contracts that you've done, and we just want to really thank you for this, and so do the residents. Thank you so much, and we look forward to the next meeting on this. Just a quick one too. I was thinking maybe we should all brush up a little bit on the general plan, particularly the land use and community character part of it. But that's it. We just want to thank you all. Thank you so much for doing this. It looks like it was a lot of work.
Thank you, Neil. I'll take that as a wholehearted endorsement. Council, is there a motion to continue this item till next month?
I'll make the motion to continue this item.
I'll second it.
I got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Ashton, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Barron,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito,
Yes.
Councilmember Tice,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards,
Yes.
and Mayor Potter.
Aye.
You have a unanimous vote.
That item is officially continued till next month. These items 1 through 6 on the balance of the consent calendar. Is there any member on council with concerns in these items? Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to these items?
Mayor Potter, I'd like to pull number 3.
Number 3. All righty, that's the dedication of donation of $50,000 towards the purchase of a new ambulance. Dale, were you going to just simply speak to that? I was going to do actually the same thing, but in a positive note. But
Sure.
why don't you go ahead and speak to it now, Dale?
Okay. First, that was a surprise announcement by Bobby, and we're very excited to get working with Bobby on his median. It's going to be a lot of fun. I was really pleased that Robin took the time to reach out to me on this grant opportunity, and was really happy to be of assistance in getting funding for ambulance service. I was also really excited that maybe those funds would allow us to speed up getting a new street sweeper that I'm very interested in getting. While I'm still learning about the grant process, it's becoming clear to me that we may be able to obtain funds for worthwhile projects and assets, but it appears there's little emphasis put on it because of limited resources at the city. We had a nice discussion about it in our Friday Public Works meeting with Bob and his team. To that end, last week we held our first meeting of a Carmel Cares ad hoc grant committee with 7 residents attending, including a representative that's on the Forest and Beach Commission and one from the Carmel Residents Association. So this isn't just about Carmel Cares. The purpose is to build a group of interested parties who either have previous grant experience, and we did have some of those on the meeting, or are willing to dedicate time to research and help submit grants related to Carmel. We've also invested in getting Carmel Cares certified with several rating services and financial institutions, and invested in grant technology to assist us and have a volunteer with decades of deep experience that has agreed to coach us. If anyone would like to join us, you can email me at carmelcares1@gmail.com. In addition to this ambulance grant services grant, Carmel Cares is now performing as fiscal sponsor for the city grant with the Youth Center, local CERT programs, Boys and Girls Club, and a grant program for the Clean Air Verified program for Carmel restaurants and retailers, which is going quite well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Is there anybody else in the public? All right, we'll close the public comment period, bring it back to council for comments. I just wanted to basically, Dale, you preempted what I was going to say. I think anybody who comes forward and shows their appreciation for the services that we provide, especially in the area of public safety, goes in and says, I'd like to show a $50,000 reward or tip or whatever you want to call it to this community. It's really an ultimate compliment. And I want to compliment Carmel Cares for being the facilitator in receiving that grant. I'd also like to comment on item number 6, which was the parking enforcement outside of the city on Scenic Avenue. That was, the report's very succinct. It says it costs less than $500 on our time, but it really has been greatly appreciated by the residents out there. The mere fact that a car rolls through there more often than a sheriff or highway patrolman is going to have done or would have done certainly shows that there's enforcement available if needed. So I want to thank the city and my partners here on council for saying this did make sense. Obviously, it's well received. Those points noted. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar 1 through 6?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent calendar 1 through 6.
I'll second it.
Right, thank you. Yasmin, could you call the roll, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Barron,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito,
Yes.
Councilmember Tice,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards,
Yes.
and Mayor Potter.
Aye.
The motion passes. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, guys. So on that note, let's move on to order of business. First item is item number 8, fiscal year 2021/2022 mid-year budget report and resolution 2020-012 approving fiscal year 2021-2022 adopted budget amendments. Chip, did you want to take care of this before I refer it over to Robin?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Robin. You know, Robin stepped in. We had a relatively sudden departure of Sharon Friedrichsen earlier in the month, and Robin very ably stepped in. I want to thank her. She'll get us through the budget season. So again, please be patient with Robin as she's wearing several hats now as well. So if there's information in here that you don't understand, please ask. If there's information that you need that's not in here, these types of reports, we can certainly augment that. And so, but the punchline is that we're doing well. Our revenue is strong. I heard from Ms. Herzog this week that the hotels for this weekend are nearly sold out for Friday and Saturday, and at, I don't know, 85, 90, 95% for Thursday. Pebble Beach reports that they've sold a lot of tickets for the AT&T. And so we hope to keep that momentum going. We remain cautious yet optimistic as always. But Robin will tell you more. She's got some slides to go through with you. And again, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good intro, Robin. The floor is yours. Welcome aboard.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chip. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I'll get my slideshow here for you. And is that displaying it okay for everybody?
There it is.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, we're obviously going to discuss our mid-year report, which covers my arrows to work. There we go. Which is going to cover the revenue and expenditures from July through December. There are some budget amendments, both on the expenditure and revenue side, that I'm requesting your council please approve. And I'm going to give some information on the American Rescue Plan Acts, or otherwise known as the ARPA funds, and recommending our city's use of those funds. And as Chip had been noted, overall, our revenues and our expenditures are aligning with budget expectations, and our city is really good on solid financial footing. Okay, this chart was in the budget report. I have a few additions to add or detailed information, but also for the benefit of the members of our audience who maybe haven't had a chance to look at the budget report. Our property taxes in December, we received our first tranche of property taxes. In general, at the end of December, we would be expecting revenues to be in at about a 50% rate. So property taxes coming in at 58%, that's good. It's a little on the high side, which is good news. Our state sales and use tax and our local measure C tax, those are at the 40% range. And that really isn't of concern yet because the state has switched to a system where they give advancement, and they've advanced October and November, and then they do a true up for the final month of the quarter, and we have yet to receive our true up. I was expecting it in January, but it didn't quite make it, so I'll be expecting it here in February. The city's sales tax consultant, HDL, they're currently working for all of their clientele. They know it's budget season for all of their clients. And so they are working to prepare updated projections for the 21-22 and future fiscal years 22-23. And they're anticipating having that data out in March. So that'll be perfect. We'll have it in time as we review for the 22-23 budget. So we'll know then if we, like I said, where we stand, but I think we're all aware that the economy is moving along well, recovering well. So I really don't have any concerns of not receiving our full amount of budgeted sales tax. Our transient occupancy taxes, those receipts are actually from July through October. So at 63%, we're well above the budgeted amount. The November, December payments are coming in. Yesterday was the required postmark date, and we've received about 50% of the reports. So this week we will be receiving I imagine the large amount, the remaining, and then we'll be sending out, the finance department will send out the usual report with the nice charts so we can all get a good feel of where we stand at the half-year mark. And charges for services and all of our other, we kind of lump all of our other categories together are, 54 and 58%. So overall at 54%, as we said, we're really right there comfortably along at the 50% mark. On the expenditure side, again, salary and benefits, we have 44% expenditure rate there. A lot of that, like I said, it's right in near the target. And as positions are getting filled, as Chip mentioned, all of the recruitments and all the positions that have recently been filled, again, we'll be moving along nicely in getting our salaries and benefits expended, services and supplies, and our pension. So again, our pension, that is where we've paid, that one gets a little front loaded for the year because we paid the all of our insurance premiums for the year, CalPERS, the unfunded liability, all of those are due up front in the year. And the rest of the expenditures are, like I said, they're in, I'm sorry, lost track, they're in that category. Debt service, we've paid the first round of invoices. Those came in December, and we received the second round of invoices for all of our debt service obligations. We get those usually about April. Capital outlay, that one's obviously low, and that's really pending having the project manager on board. A lot of the projects in the capital improvement plan need the project manager to lead. And of course, I know HR again is working very diligently along with Public Works to get that position filled. And then those projects will get rolling and we'll start seeing more expenditures in that line item. But there are expenditures that have occurred for all the projects that do not require a project manager. For instance, like the police vehicles have been purchased. Public Works has been doing the ADA compliance. They conduct those services in-house. And the server project in the IT department, those have also been expended. So there are projects from capital improvement. And workers' comp, that at 8%, that is actually a category we'd like seeing low. It's always hard to know how many expenses, how many workers' comp claims will come in, what sort of level will need to be paid. So we actually try to make sure we budget accordingly, higher rather than lower. So coming in lower, like you said, it's good. Not just on the expenditure side, it obviously means our workers have been safe. So. I'm gonna go down just into the specific departments real quick. Again, like I said, anticipating at about a 50% rate. City council, you're right there. For city attorney, I will say that this report was written before the Verizon lawsuit was filed. So I will be consulting with the city administrator and city attorney, and very likely we'll need to bring back a budget amendment in a future council meeting, depending on their estimation of the cost for the Verizon Wireless lawsuit. Let's see, in the non-departmental line item, that's again where the pension cost and the premiums are paid. And so, like I said, being a little high is fine. Through the rest of the year, we also, all of the city, paying for all of the city utilities is also in that line item. So that one's, like I said, really moving along as expected. The library is a bit low, and really the library, the majority of the library's budget is in personnel cost. And again, as Chip noted, that they're making good progress in getting positions filled. So we will start seeing more expenditures in the library. And planning and building is a little low at 34%, but that is mainly attributed to they have $290,000 budgeted in grant funds. And for right now, the staff are doing a lot of the groundwork, preparing for the grants, and then consultants will be brought in. And once the consultants are on board, we will see more of the expenditure rate in the planning and building department. All the other departments, again, are looking as expected. There are the requests for some budget amendments. There are $300,000 in the salary and benefits for various departments. And those are resulting from Resolution 2021-076, which authorized changes to the position allocation schedule, which brought back a lot of the positions that had been defunded due to COVID. So restoring those positions. And then Resolution 2021-077 also adopted a new salary plan for the at-will classifications. So the $300,000 incorporates the cost associated with those two resolutions. Also included is the a request, for an additional 1.0 FTE limited term community services officer for the police department. And that's in preparation for the paid parking program, and a 1.0 FTE administrative analyst to the administration department. And that was per council direction from the December 6th meeting. Departments were also asked to consider any costs they might need between now and the end of the fiscal year. So this listing here covers the request from the departments. There are $66,000 in just the temporary contracted recruiting services. As has come up many times, just the extraordinary amount of recruitments going on. There are the need to have some temporary contracted services to assist the Human Resources Department. $68,000 is in for the contract services to update the city's design guidelines and zoning code. Now that does pertain to the contract that was actually just postponed, but eventually the funds will be needed. So they can still remain in the budget there. The police department has identified needing.
Robin, if I can interrupt you on that
course.
last bullet, Council, you remember that we had budgeted $15,000. So the 68 is the delta between the original Nori Winter contract amount of 83 less the 15 is the 68. I'm sorry, Robin.
No, thank you. Thank you for adding that. The police department has identified the need to clean the firing range, and that would be with contracted services. They also needed to upgrade their tasers for $25,000. And then the environmental compliance department, as we've all had a lot of information lately from SB 1383 and the compliance that that's going to require from the city. There's also a lot of environmental sampling requirements that again are required of the city to stay in compliance with various agencies, and then the continuation of the greenhouse gas analysis and making sure that that project stays on course. So there was a request for an additional $25,000 in their contracted services line item. There is a request. There are some budget amendments regarding to revenue, and the revenue total is $845,553. That is more than the expenditures, which is actually good. That's a good thing. The city unexpectedly received $28,642 for the change in control of green waste. So that had not, of course, been in the budget back last July. So we need to bring those funds into the budget, and the proposal is to use those funds to offset the environmental compliance contracts. The parklet rental fees, that's $257,886. And those are the fees that have been paid for the parklets rentals up through April 20th per this council's approval. $68,000 of those dollars are recommended to be used towards the design guidelines and zoning codes contract, and really justifying that through that those will be that contract and those services will contribute to the long-term beautification of the city. And I know that the parklet rental fees was been given direction to utilize it towards the beautification. So some of it's been put towards some of the benches, and now we're asking for the to be applied towards the contract. And then as other uses, there's still a balance of funds available. And so as Public Works or other departments might identify uses, those uses will be brought, of course, to your council for approval. $411,858 is requested to be increased in the property tax revenue budget, and this will be used. These funds will be used to offset those increase in the personnel costs, the other contracts, and the tasers. And again, with having based on the first tranche of property tax revenue, very comfortable, and that increase will be met when we receive the April payment. $97,167 are from the American Rescue Plan Act funds. And when the budget was prepared last spring, the city had received an estimate that we would receive a little over $700,000 in the ARPA funds, but we actually received $911,672 in our allocation. So receiving half of it this fiscal year, this just brings that budget in balance with the amount that the city actually received. And the final is the $50,000 donation that's going to be dedicated to the purchase of the new ambulance, and that ties to the item that was on the consent agenda. Gonna go basically super fast update on the American Rescue Plan Act. So to mention to your council, I would make the recommended uses of those funds. So the Department of the Treasury adopted what was called the final rule, which addresses the approved uses of those funds, and they adopted that on January 26th of this year. It is a 437-page document, so I'm going to take all of that information and put it on 2 slides and basically get straight to the point of what is allowed by the department and what then our city can do with it, where we stay in line with the approvals with the Department of the Treasury. The city's allocation, as I mentioned, overall is $911,672. We received $455,836 this past July of 2021. We'll receive our second portion July of 2022. Cost must be obligated by December 31st of 2024 and ultimately expended by December 31st of 2026. The Department of the Treasury has a generous timeline there for items such as for agencies that will be undertaking things such as building their water systems. Now that doesn't apply to the city, but that's the reasoning why they gave longer timelines. And our first report will be due to the Department of the Treasury on April 30th, 2022. The Department of the Treasury, they did have a very generous time period for comments from basically nationwide of uses and questions of the use of funds. And so like I said, they made their final rule. I can say I've participated in several presentations by the Department of the Treasury, and they've been very firm that they feel they've been generous and flexible in listening to all of the comments that they received through the comment period. And like I said, detailing out their approved uses. Basically, they really say stick to their approved uses. They really do not recommend basically any pushing of the envelope. I was on a great presentation where the lead Department of Treasury person really just said, we've been generous, stick to the uses, do not push the envelope, do not try to get cute, do not try to get creative with your funds. So with that, to really make sure that our city stays right in line and in good standing with the Department of the Treasury, there are 4 eligible use categories. So they have categories, then they break it down into subcategories, and then very specific detailed items that fit into that category. And so the first one is the public sector revenue loss. And the subcategory is provision of public sector services, and the Department of the Treasury, including in there that it's allowed to buy purchase of fire trucks, ambulance, and police vehicles. So I am recommending that the city, we go with this category because we obviously have already purchased 2 police vehicles. We are on track to purchase an ambulance, and in our capital improvement plan for probably the next fiscal year or so, we have the replacement of our fire truck. Another requirement of Department of Treasury is that you also have to prove very clearly your purchase. This is very easy to prove. We provide an invoice, a copy of an invoice. So again, there isn't any guesswork on the Department of the Treasury that we've made these purchases. Now for the April 30th reporting, you don't have to have, what you do is you select your categories, and then only if you've actually made purchases. So for instance, we could document the purchase of the police vehicle. So you don't have to say, oh, we're going to put a certain amount of money to this category. You just have to select your categories. And then if you've actually had any expenditures in that category, you report that and then you back it up. So we would be able to do that with category number 1. Category number 2 is respond to public health and economic impacts. And the subcategory is restore and bolster public sector capacity. And the specific, one of the very specific approved items is rehiring public sector staff. I recommend this category again from the December 6th meeting, and also in the back in the June, when the budget was adopted, a lot of the positions were restored. And so all of the positions, the salary and benefits for all of those positions would qualify in this category. And again, it's very easy to approve to Department of Treasury via payroll records that are incurred expenses. The third category is to provide premium pay for essential workers. This category is not recommended since there are eligibility requirements of positions. Only certain positions qualify. There's a formula an agency has to use to calculate salary benchmarks. You do a comparison, and it doesn't seem at all like the city's workforce would qualify. And again, it's not a very clean and straightforward approval. I like categories 1 and 2 because they're, like I said, very clean, very straightforward, very, very easy for the city to document. The 4th category is to build water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And this is not even applicable to our city since our city doesn't provide these services. So my recommendation is to please receive the report and approve the budget amendments as presented. And from the categories 1 and 2, the recommended uses, if your council agrees to those uses, I would bring it back at the March meeting, bring it back by resolution, which again, we could, I would provide to the Department of Treasury. I do want to add that Councilmember Barron had followed up with some really good questions of the staff report and the information provided. And just due to timing of, again, I'm managing multiple tasks and it's actually payroll processing time, I unfortunately did not have time to provide that follow-up, but thank you, Councilmember Barron, for the questions. And I do give assurance that the follow-up information will be provided within the next few weeks or so, and shared obviously with everyone. So with that, that's what I have. I don't know if Chip would like to add on, and then of course pass it back to council.
Thank you, Robin. That was excellent. There's one really important point that needs to be made regarding the ARPA funds, the Biden Bucks Council. You saw the allowed categorical expenditure areas that Robin outlined. What we will do, if you agree with the recommendations, is that the money that we had budgeted for those items, we will use in other areas. Money is not entirely fungible when you budget it. So, but we can, through this kind of a process, that is to say, a discretionary process by which the council appropriates and budgets money, move money from fund to fund. So a lot of you and I, council, have been talking about an iconic project. Wouldn't it be great if we couldn't do for the with using the ARPA funds, like the PD remodel, or like something we could point to like the scenic road pathway? Well, again, those are not categories in the final 430 whatever page document that the Department of Treasury came out with that are viable expenditures. So again, what we're recommending here is the money that we had budgeted for the police vehicles, for example, or to bring back staff, we would use the ARPA funds for, and we would use the money that we've budgeted in the general fund for, again, the PD remodel or other capital projects that could be iconic in the future as well. Robin, how did I do with that? Was that clear enough?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. And I did neglect to mention that. So right now, Measure C funds are budgeted, for instance, like the police cars, police vehicles, and general funds are budgeted for staffing. That releases those funds now too, like I said, perfectly like Chip said, for things like a police department remodel, or as we get into, be looking at the 22-23 budget, obviously very soon, capital improvement plan. So it releases those funds to be applied to other council priorities. Thank you, Chip.
An excellent presentation. Thank you very much. Done like a professional. You've been doing this forever, apparently. Well done. And Chip, I appreciate the support. Are there questions of Robin, Chip at this time by council members before I open up for the public for comments?
Mayor?
I'm sorry. Who had their hand up?
I had my hand up, Mayor. Bobby?
Bobby, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Robin, they said that she was a pinch hitter, but it sounded more like the designated hitter. You were perfect, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know the sports analogies. Karen, did you get that?
Yes, I got it.
All right. Robin, I was just wondering, under the fourth criteria for water and infrastructure improvements, was that for potable water only, or was it, could you use it for urban runoff? Is it only for drinking water projects?
You know, I have to admit, I am not an absolute expert on 437 pages. If you want, I most certainly could look into that and provide follow-up.
Would seem though, although we don't have to provide the water, we're not the water purveyors. We do have some runoff issues that might be usable for the funds. I'm not, just maybe a long reach, but I'd be interested in knowing.
I'd be happy to help you with that, Robin, looking for storm drain opportunities.
Thank you.
Exactly what I was thinking, Bob.
Me too.
Yeah. Thank you. Jeff,
thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dave. I want Robin on the second to last slide or third to last slide, you say that we have until December 31st, 2024 to spend all this money, right? So our current fiscal year ends in the middle of 2022, and then so we can make adjustments to this fiscal year, and then we can continue to spend this $900,000 over in future fiscal years too, right? Until we get to the end of the $900,000. So we don't need to spend all that money this year, correct? It would just be sort of in the bank for us to use in the future.
That's correct. It's we select our reporting categories of the categories that we're going to spend in, but you're right, we do not have to have it expended, this fiscal year. We have actually up till December 31st, 2026.
Allocate it to spend it. So my second question is under the first category, it says replace public sector revenue loss, provision of public sector services. Maybe I'm out on a limb here, but could we spend that money on our fire services since that's a public sector service?
For fire services, for the, I guess the contract, I'd have to look into, but as far as for personnel, they do require very detailed time tracking of staff to prove that you did something related to COVID. And that is not really practical, obviously, for staff to try to monitor their time down to that level.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And then my last question is for Chip. Now, I was under the impression that at this meeting, we were going to have the opportunity as part of this hearing to, review the specs around the police station and the police station remodel project, of which Robin spoke a few minutes ago, and that we would have the opportunity to sort of insert that into the 2021-2022 budget. Like, this was the time, I think, that I was expecting to see that and be able to make sort of an informed decision. Could you comment on that?
I'm sorry if I left you with that impression, Mr. Barron. Mr. Harari and I are already looking at the next fiscal year CIP. That said, tonight you can provide me direction to bring that back, and we can bring it back in March for your consideration. It is fully my intention to prioritize the remodeling of the police department, to make that recommendation to you. Again, I can do it as early as March 1st. But again, Mr. Barron, I apologize if it's not before you tonight. That's fully on my shoulders, sir.
Thank you.
If I might, I'm just under the impression that tonight the two augmentations that the police department was looking for, one was the tasers and the other was the cleanup of the firing range, right?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. And wouldn't we be having a global discussion? I think there's general support for what Jeff's suggesting. Isn't that more something we would be dealing with as we went through prioritizations next month?
Well, you're going to talk about this. You adopted the budget calendar earlier, Mr. Mayor. Was it this? Yeah, earlier. You would have a CIP discussion, which would be for next year. But I have been talking to all of you. When we learned about the Biden bucks that we've been receiving, and it is on my, my dry erase board here, the PD remodel. Again, it's something we've all been talking about, not in a formal sense, not in a public meeting like this, but in our individual updates as something I'd like to prioritize. Again, you could ask me to bring it back, and we could insert it into this fiscal year with your direction. Unfortunately, I don't have one, let alone two project managers at this juncture to get it going. We would, if you did prioritize it, I would look into a way of facilitating to move that project forward as soon as possible. Or you could add it, direct me to add it into next fiscal year's CIP and budget consideration. It's entirely up to you. But again, I do want to apologize if I misspoke or if I misunderstood. Again, it's fully on my shoulders.
Council, your preference?
Public comment first.
All right. Okay, is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item tonight? If so, please step forward, state your name for the record. 3-minute limitation. That testimony. Anybody wishing to speak? Ashton, do you see anybody?
I don't see any raised hands, Mayor.
All right, close the public comment period, bring it back to council for direction. I'm supportive of the project in its entirety. I think it's so much needed, but I do think it might beg a little bit more of a global discussion about how it's going to be, what it exactly is, what the meat and potatoes of it are, and what it's going to be. But I think we could probably give it a preliminary, let's put it in the priority list as soon as possible. How does the rest of council feel?
Well, I would say the same thing. I think everybody's on board with getting this done sooner than later. So whatever it takes tonight to make this happen sooner than later, what do we need to do? Mayor, Chip, can I get some direction on that?
Well, if you provide that direction, I'll bring it back for your consideration in 28 days.
That would work for me, Mayor.
Works for me. Jeff?
I see Karen. Karen's been waiting first. I'm sorry, Dave.
I didn't see Karen. I can't see her. Karen?
I am fully supportive of getting the police department remodel going as soon as possible. We've been waiting too long for this, and we're discussing hiring a new chief and retaining our good policemen. And I think we have to put our money where it counts and get that project done as soon as possible. The tour that I went on of the police department was actually quite shocking to me to see some of the conditions. And I think that we owe it to our public safety staff to move that in March.
Oh, Chip, based on what, I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, so so to sort of expand on Robin's comments a few minutes ago, thank you, Robin, for all of that. The questions that I asked Robin were basically geared towards trying to ensure that we have enough money, from the leftovers from last year's budget, which were somewhat significant, and then as far as what our revenue expectations are for this year, to fund the police station. Like that's where I was trying to get to. So what I would really like to do personally is to just continue this entire item to next month, put off the budget expenditure, put off the budget alterations until next month. And then I have a list of sort of things that I would include in a motion to sort of get the information that the council needs to ensure that we have enough money to put it into this current fiscal year.
Your thoughts on that?
I would prefer if you move forward with the recommendations that you have before you, respectfully, council, and I give you my word that I'll bring back not only the data that Mr. Barron has requested to prove the point that we have adequate funds to initiate and complete the PD remodel, but bring it back for action at your March meeting, Mr. Mayor.
I think my concern with that would be to not have a full-blown public hearing on a capital project of that magnitude. Would be a little bit out of process, not to object, Jeff, to what you're suggesting. You've got the support of the council on what you want to do. I just think that I would prefer to get today's work done with the understanding that the next meeting will be a high priority ahead of any other capital improvement project to go ahead and figure out how we're going to fund the police department. They understand the revenues are there. We just need to figure out how to allocate them. Jeff, do you object?
Yeah, I guess I have an issue with that. I mean, I think, to my point that I raised earlier, I'm obviously a little frustrated. I think we've been talking about this particular project for 3 months, and honestly, I guess there's been a miscommunication between me and Chip. I don't know what's been going on, or between me and the agenda setting process. But I think that, my impression was that we were going to be able to have the hearing this month on the police station project. So the hearing that I'm asking for next month, that I'm now asking for next month, it was really my impression that we were going to be doing that this month. And I'm inclined to, and I apologize in advance to Chip for this, I'm inclined to hold Chip's feet to the fire and delay these budget adjustments until next month, so that we can ensure that we can do all this at the same time. That's my preference.
Mr. Mayor, and I don't want to be certainly in a debate, but respectfully, Robin has been wading through almost 450 pages of Department of Treasury. Again, I was up until December, I was expecting that we could use until January 1st, that we could use the Biden bucks for the PD remodel. I mean, that was fully what I'd hoped to do. And, again, wading through it, and then the determination that we really can't has dampened that opportunity. So again, I'm looking for 28 days. I'll bring it back to you with the funding request. But everything else won't be held up that you have in your budget for recommendation for the augmentation and the additional expenditures tonight.
Barry, did you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you.
Jeff is not the only one that's been pushing for the police station, as Chip knows. There has been, prior to even this discussion, there's been a lot of public comment about the police station. So I don't know what you mean, Mayor, about more of a public process. So could you better define that? Because we have a plan for the police station. It's a matter of allocating the funds.
Okay, I'm happy to expound on what I was saying about, I don't think the public's memory is that clear on what that project looks like. So there's been no full current presentation of what that project looks like. So I think if we had a presentation that allocated the funds according to the plan, we blessed that plan and said, this is what we want in a public hearing to be more transparent.
So just a matter of refreshing the public's memory on what the plan for the police station is.
Of refreshing or of informing, one or the other. But I do think that just a matter of public process, the expenditure of these kind of dollars, you do it to the public to have a full-blown hearing on the project itself. And as I remember, there was some criticism before of the project, and I can't even remember what it looked like, but I don't want to get the impression we're going back to that one. So there was some confusion over the design, I think, Carrie.
To Chip's,
I'm not arguing against the project, honestly. I just want to make sure.
I'm just clarifying what the expectations are here. To Chip's point, and in Robin's presentation, obviously $911,000, especially when we're planning on trying to find funds for a fire truck, ambulance, and some police vehicles, and being able to switch that over to the police station. Chip, I think we've got the funds, and I'm really looking to hard press on this issue. And so I think what Jeff is asking is to have a little more clarity in terms of, especially with the TOT coming in, the report doesn't indicate how much over we are. It just gives us a percentage. So, to make good decisions, we need the numbers. So putting it off for a month, I'm fine with that.
Fine. Sure, Carrie, if I just got some clarification on that. You're fine with putting off the decision on the other components too? All of the other projects?
Yes.
Why is that? I mean, I have a great deal of confidence in staff's recommendation. These other projects are doable, are critical. I also believe that the money's there for the police station too. I kind of have a problem with, guessing or superseding what staff's recommending here at this time on a project that I don't have the actual knowledge of right in front of me. So it's a little, I don't mean it disrespectful, but it does seem a little discourteous, perhaps.
A little what?
Discourteous.
Mayor?
Bobby.
Yeah, I think, staff's asked for 28 days to bring this back. We're all on the same page. We want this particular remodel to the police station done. I know Carrie and I have wanted it done for a long, long time. And so we're all on board with that. Chip's asking for 28 days. Why can't we extend that courtesy to Jeff and to Chip and staff? These guys we keep talking about how staff is stressed. And here staff is coming to us, telling us that they're stressed, saying, please give us 28 more days. And we're saying, no, we're going to not do that. So I would say, let Chip drive the ship.
All right. Under the spirit of contentiousness, no. I don't want to I don't want to appear like we're at odds here. I think we're all wanting to go in the same direction. I just kind of don't want to really disrespect staff's hard work to date and say we're going to prolong this decision on the other project. I'm perfectly happy to approve what's before us tonight. And then say at the next meeting, we're going to bring forward a full-blown presentation so the public understands what the project is. We can bless it accordingly, find the money, and fund it. Just seems procedurally, that's a much more logical way to go. Karen?
Well, I want the police department done yesterday, and I don't think we really need to get into the position of redesigning anything. And I'm afraid that a full-blown presentation could get into that kind of situation. We have an approved plan, as I remember, and I just think we need to fund it and fund it as soon as possible.
Again, as I said, as you remember it, does the public really remember? Where has the public hearing been on this? How long ago did we last hear that project? Chip?
It was
Yes. Sorry.
Election year, issue in 2018, Mayor. And then we heard it in early 2019 when the project was mothballed.
With the architect of this discussion?
About 3 years ago, sir.
I think with respect, Chip, the project was put onto the, let's see, Dave, you and I were elected in 2018. We changed, the first thing we did was change the police station project. And then it was funded, it was funded up until COVID. Is that not right? And it got yanked off of the capital improvement project plan when COVID arose. So we've had a bunch of hearings about it. It was authorized. It was put onto the project. I'm not suggesting, my intent here is not to greenlight the program in advance and have some. I'm perfectly willing, and I'm sorry if this hasn't been clear, to have the hearing, Dave, on the project next month. Like that's not an issue. We can, I agree, as I said earlier, I agree that we need to make sure we have the money. We can go over the design. We can do all that stuff next month. The thing that I would like to do, and I know that Chip doesn't want to do this, but the thing that I would like to do is put off the budget adjustments for the same 28 days. So I'm giving, I'm happy to give staff the 28 days. There's no argument from me on giving staff the 28 days to put the staff report together and approve the police station next month. The only what I would like to do is hold off on the budget adjustments, and then we can do the budget adjustments that staff is asking for this month, the budget adjustments for the police station, as well as the budget adjustments for the ARPA funds that Robin has brought up. We can do all of that at the same time at next month's meetings. And then we can either include the police station budget adjustments or not, depending on what the council decides next month.
Still unclear as to what the purpose is of not agreeing to approve the projects that are before us tonight. I don't understand what delaying that accomplishes, other than perhaps teaching the staff a little bit of a lesson here. I mean, Jeff, I don't have a problem at all with what you're saying. I think we all agree here that this is a valuable project. But honestly, and I appreciate you saying you don't have a problem here and having the public have a full-blown opportunity to review the project. But really, I mean, I don't understand what the problem is with these projects and before us tonight that you wouldn't want to approve tonight.
That would be my question as well.
I guess that was kind of targeted towards you. And I don't
know. I've made my wishes. I think that I've made my wishes clear and how I would like this to proceed. I don't have an answer to your questions, Dave.
We got a little bit of a conundrum here. I've become kind of a process freak over the course of time. And so, I mean, we've got a process before us. I didn't have any objections to it, nor did I hear any objections from council on the amendments that were before us tonight. I think what I also hear is consensus that we do need to approve the remodel as it was envisioned, as it was approved and defunded a while ago. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't know if anybody really understands what the approved project was at that time. I don't think we're gonna have any problem from it. I don't want to get into a redesign. I'd love to come forward and rapidly bless it. I just don't want to appear as if I know more about staff or I have some desire to chastise staff in a way that says, hey guys, appreciate your hard work, but maybe we want to look at this again. I think nobody objected to the augmentations that were before us tonight. So why are we going to go ahead and delay the process?
Mayor, can I make a motion to approve the items that are before us tonight and we bring back the police station at next month's meeting?
I'll second that, but under discussion with that motion, then approve the funding for that project, the design of that project, and a full-blown presentation on it.
Next month for the police station. But for the items that are before us tonight, let's approve it. And next month, we will carry on with the police station.
Exactly. Okay, that's why I seconded it. Under discussion. Terry.
Are we approving the American Rescue Plan funds as well? Or just the expenditures and the revenue amendments?
Just the revenue and expenditure. And then again, we'll bring back the use of the ARPA funds, council member, and then with the direction on the motion, if it passes, the presentation on the PD remodel with a request for funding, for allocation for funding.
And excuse me, if I may add to that also, by the March meeting, we'll know the value of the December and November, December TOT, and very likely might have the updated sales tax numbers from our consultant. So those could be items that would be put towards, used in the discussion of the police department remodel. So yes, if the items, the other budget amendments could go forward tonight, those really just pertain to the city's operating budget. And that would allow the departments to continue with their operations and the hiring of personnel. And then, and like you said, the ARPA funds and the police department could gladly be brought back in further discussions.
Thank you, Carrie, for that question. Is there any other questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, we had to, Carrie.
Carrie. So I appreciate that the council does want to quickly look at the police station remodel. So I do appreciate our efforts in finally getting that on the agenda for next month. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
And any other comments? I'm going to call a question.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm really stuck. So I have a question for Carrie. Do you? I'm really stuck here, and I know that Chip knows that I don't. Certainly not my intention to disrespect staff, but I think that this is a sort of a process problem that has been plaguing us, and it's hard for me, as I said earlier, to put my finger on why this item has not appeared on the agenda. I honestly can say that I do not know. We have been talking about this, and we have been talking about this, and we have been talking about this. And, my plan to sort of simply delay these budget adjustments for 28 days is to ensure that this thing gets put on the agenda next month, and that it doesn't just disappear. And as an example, some minor thing that seems to have disappeared was a couple of months ago. We had a discussion, Chip, about the waste interceptor thing in the public right of way, and that policy that we asked for has disappeared. And this is not a blame the staff situation. It's just that things seem to fall between the cracks. And sometimes they're minor things like the waste interceptor, the garbage, the sewer interceptor problem. And sometimes there are these big things like the police station that, obviously is just causing me a lot of consternation here. So Carrie, we go forward with this as it is, or we?
So, because part of the motion is to have the police station on the next agenda, I am willing to accept the budget expenditure and income adjustments.
Thank you.
And Chip, may I just interrupt for a second? If it didn't have the fact that this was going to be definitively on the agenda, I would not be supporting it either. But Bobby's motion is very clear. It will be on, and I said very clearly, I actually augmented his comments by saying, or his motion by saying, that will be a presentation with funding allocated and an up and down vote on funding the project. I think it couldn't be any clearer. But Chip, did you have something? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And without frustration on my part either, my staff has been eviscerated. I mean, just a reminder that it wasn't too long ago that we had no idea the impact of this horrible global pandemic, and we cut 20% of the staff. I mean, people are wearing. You thanked Miss Wright tonight wearing 3 hats. Miss Scattini's wearing at least 2 hats. Mr. Harari. I mean, every department head, and you recognize that by considering banding and salary increases for the executive team. We just received the guidelines from the feds less than a month ago. Miss Friedrichsen, resigned very abruptly. We're basically our heads are barely above water. And again, I say that with respect, and things have fallen off the agendas. They have not fallen through the cracks indefinitely. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I sound frustrated. We're doing our noble best. I would really appreciate if you would appreciate that.
That said, I'm going to call a question as a seconder, or as a seconder. So could we get a roll call, please, Yasheen? A motion and a second.
Yes. Let's start with Councilmember Barron.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito.
Yes.
Councilmember Tice.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards.
Yes.
And Mayor Potter.
Aye.
The motion passes. The vote is unanimous.
I thank you guys for that discussion. It was valuable, honestly. We weren't arguing, we were discussing in a professional way. I appreciate that. All right, that note, why don't we move on to the next item, which is Resolution 2022-015, authorizing the mayor to execute a Fifth Amendment to the city administrators at will employment agreement effective October 1, 2021. Brian or who else is this? Brian or Brian, did you want to kick us off anyway? And then we'll go to Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was trying to find my button there. Yeah, this item is the proposed salary increase for Chip Rehrig. You have the staff report before you, which includes the resolution, which would authorize.
Maxine, maybe you wanted to go to this, Brian. I didn't mean to catch you off guard. I meant to say Maxine, but if you're ready.
I'm ready. Aren't we on this?
Brian. This one's Brian's report. I have the one after.
That's okay, Maxine. Sorry. Thought you did.
Okay, so I'll keep going. So as I indicated, you have before you the resolution which would authorize the mayor to execute a Fifth Amendment to the city administrator's at-will employment agreement, which would be effective October 1 of 2021. The current salary of the city administrator is $196,650. There is one spot in the staff report where it says $196,500, but the correct number is the one that's shown later, which is $196,650. And the proposed salary increase is $20,000 a year. So that would bring the salary to $216,650. And the fiscal impact would be, in fact, that $20,000. The attachments include your prior actions and prior amendments to the contract. And as I indicated in my earlier comments, you have in the agenda packet the resolution, and then attached to the resolution is the proposed Fifth Amendment. I'm available if there's any questions.
Any questions of Brian by council members at this time? Hearing none, I'll open it up to the public for comment. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item? Hearing no one, I'll bring it back to council. Brian, did you have any closing comments based on the comments from the public?
No, I think, even being a lawyer, it's hard for me to comment on no comments. So I'll pass.
I know some lawyers that wouldn't bother them at all. It's been
yeah, no, I'm not one of them.
Good, thank you. All right, council, your comments and direction? Well, I guess I'll kick it off then. Chip, I know that we've had discussions about this. I think the council is well prepared to support what's before us. We feel it's well reserved. So I'm happy to support the motion if there's a motion, or I'll make the motion myself.
I have some comments.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure, obviously, this year to take over from Carrie and lead the evaluation process of Chip. And it's my apologies for being new at this and having it take so long. And obviously, we're a month behind. For members of the public, I think the evaluation of the city administrator is, as I think it's one of the most important things that the council does. He's one of the two employees that works directly for the council, other than our council counselor, who is down south. When we do this evaluation, we look at things like leadership and management, the way Chip manages his community relations, his financial management of the enterprise, and you know, our little spat a few minutes ago notwithstanding, you know, Chip, I can honestly say that it is a pleasure to work from you. I have complete faith in your ability to steward this organization. You've done a tremendous job over the course of the past 2 years through the pandemic and dealing with the staffing issues that we have and the budget issues that we thought we had and we didn't have, and just everything in between. So it's my complete pleasure to vote yes on this amendment to your contract.
Jeff, as I know on behalf of the council, I appreciate your taking over your role and going ahead and stewarding the council through this evaluation. It's a lot of work. I'm glad to see your report was a little late, actually, just to show what a heavy workload can do to a person. I'm being facetious, of course. You're not puking, all right? Okay, good. No, I mean it did fun, but no, honestly, Jeff, you did a good job. You were very good and wanted everybody to follow up, and so well done.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm very well articulated about our concerns about Chip. He's doing a good job, and we appreciate that. Are there any other comments by council members?
I'd like to make a comment.
Karen? Sure.
Yes, I appreciated the fact that we used a professional person to work with Jeff as well to interview us, to go through some really good questions about performance and relationships. And I wanted to thank Jeff for insisting that we do that. I think it was money well spent.
Thank you, Karen.
So we do need a motion. I'd make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Excellent. Any other discussion?
I want to thank Jeff for doing a great job. And I want to thank Chip for continuing to lead our city in these tough times. And I appreciate what he does. So thank you.
Well said.
Oh, one other thing I would like to, for the public's information, Chip has set some wonderful goals for this coming year, and I think it behooves all of us to help him meet those goals and keep track of them.
Bobby?
I would just echo everything. Chip, you're doing a great job. I appreciate working with you. I appreciate how you treat your staff and how well you work with all of us, and keep up the good work.
Ready, we have a motion and a second. Yassine, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Barron,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito,
Yes.
Councilmember Tice,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards,
Yes.
and Mayor Potter.
Aye.
The motion
Right, Chip.
passes. The
Well
vote is
done.
unanimous.
Thank you, council. Okay, next item is a report on the outdoor seating ad hoc committee survey results and provide direction regarding that when and how the planning commission should begin work on a potential permanent outdoor seating program. Let me just preface this thing, but this is not a referendum tonight on the value of the parklets. It's not about, you know, we should keep them up or we should keep them going. This is about referral to the planning commission. If we're going to do that, what does it look like? So with that noted, Brandon, I think you're kicking us off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as you mentioned, so on January 4th, the city council gave direction to do a couple things. One, extend the temporary parklet program to April 20th, 2022. And as part of that motion, they directed the staff to come back to discuss the scope and timing of beginning like a real effort of working on this permanent outdoor seating program. That includes when to begin working with the Planning Commission, what those guardrails for deliberations of the Planning Commission would be, sort of like setting the parameters of where the council would like to see the Planning Commission put their efforts initially. And then also to come back and review just at a pretty high level, the ad hoc survey results and the recommendation just for the council's information. So the overview, just quick overview of what I'm going to talk about tonight. Like I mentioned, when and how to begin work with the Planning Commission. This is what I'll be asking you for at the end. As the mayor put it so well, this is not a discussion on the merits of outdoor seating. We're really just looking for a direction on the timing and scope of the effort for beginning to work with the Planning Commission and the public on the larger program. And as I mentioned, I'm going to run through the ad hoc committee survey and recommendations. So the first bit of our business here is sending this to the Planning Commission. So the big question tonight is when to begin work with the Planning Commission. Things to consider for the council are the rest of the strategic priorities. If you recall, we've got a meeting that we're planning for in March. The date's to be determined still, but we are targeting March to talk about the rest of the priorities. This would be one of them potentially that would fit in there. And you all know this, everyone's aware of this, but there's a plethora of regulatory updates that'll be required for an outdoor seating program. Various municipal code sections, not just our zoning code, but also the building code, roads, sidewalks, et cetera. We'll need to look at updates to our general plan. And that also includes updates to the local coastal plan, which requires ultimate approval by the Coastal Commission. We also would anticipate that once we start work on an outdoor seating program, that there's going to be additional community focused meetings, because as we saw from the survey, the community is interested in this. And so I do anticipate needing to have some community meetings. So that's sort of just the list of things to consider. There's also sort of like the scope or the guardrails, as I keep using that term, of what the Planning Commission should deliberate on. When we were last together in January, we did ask for any council member that wanted to send us sort of their list of concerns or questions that we would pose to the Planning Commission when we got there. I did attach those to the staff report. I felt it was appropriate to highlight them. I'm not coming today with answers to those questions specifically, because I feel like that's something that would be sussed out through the public hearing process. It's not really staff's position to explain, or not to explain, but to take a stance on, why we're doing the program or the merits or the benefits. I think that needs to be worked out through the public hearing process. But just quickly to go back through those areas included design, the logistics of permitting, impacts to the rest of the downtown and business area, impacts to things like parking, traffic, and sidewalks, the goals, historic impacts, how ownership would work, any other laws that would dovetail with us putting this in, things like State Alcohol Board, American with Disabilities Act, and whether or not and how to use consultants, because it could be a broader effort. So those are the big considerations for when and how to start work on this with the Planning Commission. So that's sort of like phase one of our conversation tonight. I'll be looking for direction on that later. Just to put some information into your brains, and I'll go quickly because there's a lot here. We did do that ad hoc survey back, which was presented back in July to the ad hoc committee. And there was a recommendation coming out of the ad hoc committee to continue working on an outdoor seating program, given the outcome of that survey. Just briefly to remind you how that went down. It was an online survey, but it was also available via hard copy for those that don't use the internet. We had it out in the world for 30 days. We had a total of about 1,500 responses, but we did go through and call out duplicate responses. So we ended up with about 1,400 responses. We reported the information back in two different ways, both by the respondent type, think restaurant owner, hotel owner, resident, local, non-local. We tried to get as much information as possible, so that would help us analyze the information. And then we did generalize those two to make it a little bit more digestible. So we'll run through those really quickly. As you can see here, the respondent types, these are all of the different categories that we came up with where people could identify themselves. It was self-identifying, but we did use email addresses, and that's how we were able to weed out multiple responses from the same person or people. You can see all the different categories here. People were able to describe which one best selected them. And then we took all those individuals and sort of like piled them into bigger categories for conversation's sake. We can always go back and look at each of those individually, but they basically went into 4 categories. You had residents, that's full-time, part-time, businesses, every business type, hotel, restaurant, shops, whatever. Non-residents, these are people that don't live here, either full or part-time. And then others, just people gave us their own category. And there were some interesting ones in there, but we won't go through those. So these are the questions themselves that talked about what type of outdoor seating people thought were most consistent with the character of Carmel-by-the-Sea. The first one had to do with this style. So this was an image that was in the survey. It's essentially a bump out where the sidewalk goes out. You can see the responses here. This is the one that has all of the different categories, but I'm going to jump to the next one. It's the same amount of data, but it's just cleaned up a little bit. So you have our condensed categories. You can see on the far right-hand side, this was pretty overwhelmingly thought of to be a consistent very consistent type of outdoor seating. That the bump out that we just saw, same exercise here. The parklet now is separated from the business by the sidewalk, but it's still bumped out. You can see here it's still consistent. People thought it's slightly less than the last one. And then this one is just tables in the sidewalk, no bump out of the actual sidewalk. So it does neck down the sidewalk for pedestrian travel a little bit. And you can see the numbers dropped with consistency, and we see more people thinking this is less consistent. We asked questions about closure time. Should there be a standard closure time for the restaurant and the parklet related? This was kind of a 50-50. Should there be an annual fee to do this? This seems pretty overwhelming that people thought that there should be an annual fee. Business frontage, this is very overwhelming. Should a business be limited to the area in front of their establishment so that their parklet doesn't interfere with their neighbors? You can see where we got feedback there. Specialty restaurants, should bakeries, coffee shops have the same opportunity as restaurants? There's an overwhelming yes there. Wine tasting shops, same question here. Should wine tasting shops be allowed to apply for a parklet permit for permanent use? This was another overwhelming yes. And again, as we're going through these, the green boxes are the residents, the yellow boxes are other, the red is non-resident, and the blue is businesses. So this is existing space. Should businesses with existing private outdoor space be allowed to apply for a permit? That was a yes. So you're not excluded from the program potentially if you already have some outdoor space. Parking. So these are questions that got to more people's concerns. So on a scale of 1 to 5, we asked them, how concerned are you about the loss of parking? If a program was approved, you can see there it does tilt towards the not concerned side. I think it is worth noting, though, that on the very concerned side, you still have the second largest number on the scale, 26% versus 31%. So it is split. I think people have varying opinions of how much this would impact the parking downtown. Impacts to design aesthetics. If the seating program was approved, how do you think it would impact the design aesthetics of the city? It seems to be tilted towards positive impact. But if you looked at the next biggest number, it's on the other side. So this is just all data that we can use as we're working through with the Planning Commission. This would all carry forward to them. How did people think that it would impact parking? Negative impact, public safety. I think this one was right in the middle. People weren't really sure how they felt about this. Pedestrian flow. This is clearly tilted towards the negative impact side, neutral and over. People were concerned about pedestrian flow. Obviously, that's why I think that the bump outs and retaining the sidewalk were more preferred than the tables. Vehicle flow, same thing. Appears to be some concern about impacts. Noise and nuisance, same thing. These nuisance and impact ones for noise, traffic, pedestrians, they all kind of follow the same shape, tilted towards their realization that there could be an impact. So that means if we went forward with this, we'd want to make sure we are addressing those concerns. Appeal to visitors. I think everyone pretty much agreed that visitors are attracted to outdoor seating. It would increase people's desire to dine out. That was the question here. Would it increase people's desire to dine out? It seems that there was sort of a mixed bag on whether or not or how this would impact the retail shopping experience. You can see that 23% on the right-hand side thought there'd be a positive impact to retail, but you did have a large percentage on the far left-hand side at 12%, the third largest percentage thinking there'd be a negative impact. So there is some sentiment that there could be negative impacts to retail if this were to go forward. Positive impact to the overall restaurant dining experience. Generally positive impact to the wine tasting experience, again, because the majority of people at least said that wine tasting shops should be allowed to apply for an outdoor parklet. Impact for the residential experience. You can see again, it's sort of split here. Economic equity. I think this question maybe, originally this was developed by the ad hoc group. And again, these questions went through probably 2 or 3 rounds of ad hoc committee meetings to refine the question. There was members from the public, the business community, residents and non-residents alike. that provided input to wording and what we wanted to see on these surveys. So all these questions came out of that work. This one was meant to be, how would it impact the equity of people getting business downtown? It came out as a positive impact, but this one I'm not 100% sure that people really understood when they were taking the survey. And then the last one, this isn't really useful data. We got every one of those, the 1,300 or so responses gave us some comments. And so this was the best way we could think to put out some information from that without showing everybody every comment. And so you can see the way these word clouds work is the words that you see repeated the most in the 1,300 some comments are larger than the other ones. So you kind of, again, you have a kind of a split. You have words like and good and great, but you also have words like traffic and so what do we also got here? Loss. You've got parking. So we saw a mixed bag in words as well. So with that, I apologize. I wanted to run through the survey quickly. It was a lot of information, but I think, it was included as part of your packet, and I'm sure that you have researched, and I believe we've actually talked about it before. But the direction we're looking for tonight is, one, when should the Planning Commission begin work with staff on a permanent outdoor seating program? When that happens, what parameters or guardrails should be put on the Planning Commission's consideration? And is there any other direction regarding next steps about when or how to undertake those? So with that, I will end my presentation and I am available for questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Great presentation on a complicated topic. I appreciate it. Council, any questions of Brandon at this time before I open it up for public comment? Brandon, I just ask, has there been any clarification as to what the water situation will be once the original standing was, I don't know if there's been really a candid conversation. I think there's actually some confusion around that.
Yeah, no, sir, Mr. Mayor. I think that's all still up in the air.
Yeah. All right. Jeff, do you have your hand up? I didn't see it or not. I'll assume not. Okay, I'll open up. Bobby.
Brandon, concerning, is this what we talk about tonight? Will this have an effect on what our goals are that we'll talk about in the next meeting in our, I think, March, our getaway or whatever that is?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I think the short answer is yes, because the development of a program like this, I tried to highlight there's a lot to it. We've got a lot of regulatory work that would have to be done to make sure it's done correctly. So that work would be done by myself and my staff and any consultants that we might employ. So those are the same people that would be working on other priorities that are on that list for the city council.
So, Bobby, is your concern that this discussion might be premature based on our goal setting and desires to prioritize those goals? Is that what you're?
Well, both, Mayor. I think it might be a little bit premature, maybe a little bit putting the cart before the horse. However, it is an important topic that we've talked about now for a couple of years. So again, I don't want it to go on the back burner, but then we are having this goals and levels of importance of items coming up before us in a month. And so I'm not sure how deep we want to go into this tonight when it could be a completely different canvas next month.
No, I appreciate the clarification. Any other questions or questions at this time? Aaron, are you questioning or?
Yes, I have a similar question as to why this is leapfrogging ahead of things that are on our priority list that we were supposed to have had a meeting for by now. And that, I don't understand why, since this is not really an emergency, it is coming before that strategic planning time.
Council member, is that a question for me or for your fellow council members?
That's a question for you.
Oh, okay. So when we were here last month in April to talk about, whether or not to extend the parklet program overall, one of the directions that came out of that to staff was to come back with this conversation tonight. So the reason we're here tonight is because we did receive direction from council at the last meeting when we were talking about extending or not extending, which is a conversation we have been having over and over just to make that determination. The staff was requested to bring this back. I think Councilmember Richards, rightly points out that there is work that would be done on this that could potentially take away from some of the other priorities. So I'll leave that in the council's capable hands to determine whether or not to do something with that right now or not. But I can at least answer you why it's here tonight is because we were directed at the last meeting to bring this back.
Okay, but a further clarification. At the last meeting, when we did that, we also thought we were going to be having our strategic planning meeting before tonight.
That's correct. And Mr. Eric may want to poke in on that a little bit, but I know we were trying to schedule something for February. I think with everything that was going on, it was difficult to align calendars. And so we are looking at March right now.
Exactly. All right, Chip, did you feel a need to lay in on that? I think it's pretty been well articulated by Brandon. All right, Carrie, are you unmuted for any reason?
I was just going to add, the expectation was that we were going to have our strategic planning discussion before this meeting. So that I think that's part of the question here. So. At the last meeting, Mayor, you felt that we were going to push to have that strategic planning meeting. So that's why I can understand Karen's question.
I can too. I think we also got to acknowledge that everybody else has a life outside of council, and there may be conflicts that don't afford us the opportunity to get together as anticipated. I think that's what happened. I know that's what happened in my case. I had a very crowded calendar in February. So anyway, hopefully we will be together soon. Unless there's any other discussion by council, I'll open this up to the public for comment. Anybody in the public wishing to comment on this item, recognizing this is about the referral of the Planning Commission and boundaries or issues that might relate to that. Is there anybody wishing to speak tonight? If so, please state your name for the record. There's a 3-minute limitation on the testimony. Really?
Wait.
Richard.
Yes. Should I begin?
Yes.
So the one of the issues is whether or not, or I don't know if it's an issue or it's a question, but it seems we will have to amend our general plan, which means the also amending the coastal plan and other things. So in order to do this, so if that's true, and that's something that I think the Planning Commission should look into, then the question is, how long will it take if we choose to do this, whether it's worth doing or not? How long will it take to amend those plans and get those through? And in the interim, what happens to the temporary parklets? If the answer is months or years, then the decision has to be made whether it's worth it to the council, the city, the community, to spend that much energy on this issue. So I think that should be explored by the Planning Commission up front, because it would, why waste time speaking about the details if it turns out that the overall approach is going to be extended period of time or unfeasible? Thank you.
Looks like Janice Bradner has her hand up. Janice, am I correct?
Yes, you are. I think among the guardrails that folks like me with Carmel Cares would like to see are some standards. And it's not just standards around safety, which we know we all need, but there's the aesthetics. How does it fit in with the character of the city? Are they ADA compliant? And there's also some standards that I think need to be set around the upkeep, and that is cleanliness and appearance of the parklets, not just within the parklets, but also in the areas adjacent to the parklets, like the outside facing the street or the sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Appreciate it. Anybody else wishing to speak tonight? like Nancy or Tim. Either one of you has the floor, Nancy or Tim.
Yes, Tim here. I'm trying to figure out how to get my video going there. There we go. Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I know this is not about the temporary parklets, but I'd really like to thank you, a big thank you to the city, for your compliance and enforcement of the temporary parklets around safety, cleanliness, et cetera. I know that you've, kind of re-energized the efforts around that. So, really appreciate it. And the CRA board, we're looking forward to exploring the potential for permanent restaurant outdoor dining in public spaces. And I'd like to just reinforce a couple of important points that were pre-submitted by council members. And this is being redundant, but just to think that these are important. And number one, that we identify the interdependencies with other projects and priorities, especially with the upcoming rework of the design guidelines and zoning codes. And number two, that we look at how this project fits into the commercial district and village as a whole, rather than piecemeal. And three, that we do still have over 30 restaurants offering outdoor dining in private spaces, including patios, terraces, and courtyards that are available for both residents and visitors to enjoy. So it's not like we're without any outdoor dining experiences. And I think the discussion around the upcoming planning and priority meeting, this is on your list of priorities. I can't remember what number it is, but it's down, I think, in the 20s or something. But at that meeting, and hopefully we can tee that up for March, to really just where does this fit in the grand scheme of things? And I think Mr. Kreitman brought up a good point that the timing of this and what are all of the the requirements going to be to get this this permanent process up and running. So probably more to come on that, but thank you again.
Tim, thank you. Joel Jung and then David Fink.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to say I agree with some of Janice's comments that she just made about standards and ADA and, a lot of the comments she made there. This is my 20th year in Carmel in the hospitality business, in the restaurant business. 20 years ago, I was just looking back at my records. I think we had 74 restaurants, and Kenny Spielvogel can jump in here, but today I think we're in the low to mid 50s. You got to wonder why that is. The reason is because this is the toughest damn business you could ever want to be in. Our margins have been slashed, even though all of you think we're doing so well during COVID, because our costs are up, our labor costs is up, especially our food costs is up because all of our prices is up. And we need outdoor dining. And I think the survey has spoken very clearly that the residents and the businesses want it. Our guests have spoken overwhelmingly that they want it. I think I sent you all an article to the council. Outdoor dining is here to stay. And while I agree with some of Tim's points, it's got to be a level playing field for all of us to be able to have the ability to have outdoor dining for our guests because they want it. We've got great examples outside of the Carmel-by-the-Sea on how to do this correctly. This adds to the character of Carmel. And I really, really think we need to embrace this. And we also need to include the wine tasting rooms in this whole plan because they give another whole bit of character to Carmel. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me say my piece.
Joel, before I go to you, which David seemed to think he was before you, David seemed to miss my discussion at the start of the meeting when I said this was not about the merits of the need or the desire to have the parklets or their economic value. It was about what we were going to ask the Planning Commission to do. So I'd appreciate if we could stay focused on that as a topic for discussion. Joel, sorry about the getting out of queue.
Yep, thank you. I guess just a few comments.
and questions, I guess, if we're kind of directing the Planning Commission. I would ask, how will it change the character of Carmel? I think there's, a lot of people are pointing to pros and cons of outdoor dining, but I guess specifically, how will it change Carmel, and what sort of infrastructure changes are going to be required to take advantage of that? I think Council Member Ferlito had some pretty valid questions in her comment pages that I read before the meeting. Maintenance is clearly something that's going to have to be addressed. The other question is just, why do we need this now? It seems that some of the restaurants are using this as a way to expand their businesses. And there may be a place for that, but I think the Planning Commission needs to look at how does that impact the other aspects of downtown Carmel, whether it's parking, whether it's sidewalk accessibility, ADA compliance, and just the overall look and feel of the downtown area. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. I appreciate that. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Anybody else?
Yeah, hi, Mr. Mayor. This is Jack Galante.
Jack.
Hi, thanks. I appreciate it. In keeping in line with what this meeting is about, it's about what is to be brought to the Planning Commission. And I'm, based on a planning background, I'm all for looking at a general plan update. A general plan, master plan, or land use plan basically is a document designed to guide the future actions of a community. And it really presents a vision for the future with long-range goals, objectives for all activities that affect the local government and the community. It represents a community's view of its future and expresses, its community's development goals. So this, I think that the public and businesses alike in the community have spoken and said, look, we would like to look at this issue. We would like to address outdoor dining, outdoor wine tasting, whether it's in public or private spaces, in some manner. And the proper way to do that is through the general plan amendment, or rather general plan update process. And that is where we can discuss who is for this, if it should be continued, if it should not, what are the costs, what does it entail? Does it entail plazas, looking at plazas? Did it entail redeveloping sidewalks, wider sidewalks, one-way streets, whatever it is, and if that's a feasible thing. So, I just want to say that I think that this council bringing this to the planning department, along with so many other important issues that must be done, but then to look at it through the general plan update procedure, which I believe this town definitely needs, because we all see that there's some infrastructure issues that need to be taken care of and looked at through that update process as well, is a good thing. And I just want to commend you guys for doing that. Thank you.
Well said, Jack. Thank you. Anybody else tonight?
Dave, I've got a couple of comments.
Stuart Graham.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Graham Robertson. I'm a 56-year resident of Carmel-by-the-Sea. We greatly appreciate, applaud, and commend you for hiring Nori Winter to review the commercial and residential design standards. The public meetings will be critical to how the residents and businesses feel about a variety of issues affecting the look of our village. As part of Nori's scope of work, I believe the analysis should be an in-depth study of what I'll call DIP Pro, and that's dining in the public right-of-way. The reality is we already have outdoor dining in Carmel in 33 different restaurants. Further, I would support, due to the fact we already have those 33 restaurants with legitimate outdoor dining, that you vote tonight to cease wasting any further staff time discussing this matter. After all, the question is, who's benefiting for this incredibly time-consuming and divisive issue? I think you all know the answer to that. In summary, my suggestion is to cease the discussion about DIT Pro and have staff focus on significantly more important issues. However, if you feel compelled to continue this discussion, this matter for the benefit of very few people, then have Nori Winter and his team analyze the DIT Pro dining in the public right away before sending it to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram. Is there anybody else tonight? I don't hear anybody. Last call. All right, I'll close the public comment.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi.
That's Bashar.
This is Bashar.
Okay, Bashar, you're gonna be the last speaker unless anybody else wants to queue up more immediately.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your time. Make it very simple and quick. I think, answering the question why now and why should we move forward of it and or make it kind of look like an important or urgency, I think that the survey will speak for that. My belief that when you have a survey and you have the majority pro something and they want to go for something and they like something in our time, that makes it important. And make it that we need to move forward with it because that's the majority say. And for what to represent, also, I think the survey spoke a lot about the concerns and what should be, tuned and tweaked to bring the best out of this project. And I think we shouldn't be afraid of a change. Change is a healthy thing. And it's going to bring, it's going to make Carmel a better place, I think, and more beautiful. And the majority again said that. So everything is changing, the world changing, so we can change. There's nothing wrong with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bashar. All right, last call. If you want to speak, queue up quickly, no lurking. All right, I'm going to assume nobody else wants to speak. I'll close the public comment period, bring it back to council. Discussion, direction, thoughts and comments. Brandon, do you have any closing comments based on comments you heard from the public?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Council members, I guess I'm happy to kick this off in one area. I think we do need to come to a world of reality in the world of water here. My understanding is that they were allowed to have outside dining if you did not have an intensification of use prior to the pandemic, pre-COVID. If you wanted to go outside dining, you had to reduce the number of units you had inside and move them outside. So that basically there was no intensification issue to use. The special resolution that the Water Board Management Board passed was COVID responsive. So I'd be interested in seeing how many people would go ahead and say, I want to go ahead and have outside dining, and then I'm going to reduce the number of seats I can have inside based on the cost of providing the new outside dining. It's just sort of a caveat I'd throw out there. I think, Brandon, if that's something you can add into the discussion. I don't have a problem at all putting off any definitive discussion tonight till the next meeting when we do have a list of other priorities that are perhaps more important or more pressing. But that's not the discussion that's before us tonight. Council members?
I have some comments, Dave.
Sure, Mike. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I agree with your assessment that maybe perhaps we should, or your statement that perhaps we should put this off, that sort of Bobby and Karen sort of started that discussion during question time. I think the classic example to me of why we should consider deferring this is, this is a lot of work. Before I get into deep specifics, this is a lot of work for the Planning Commission. And yet, one of the things on our list of topics is to bifurcate the Planning Commission into a Planning Commission and a Design Review Board. And by sort of offloading the DRB task to a separate body, that would certainly free up a lot of planning time for a new Planning Commission or a change Planning Commission to tackle this project with all of the effort and all of the thoughtfulness that I think is due. I look at Brandon's slide 4, the scope of the effort, and to me that just seems overwhelming. I put some of the things in my list of things. How would we involve the following stakeholders? restaurants and retail establishments and residents. I'm not convinced yet that the retail establishments have had their say. I think the survey was a great start, but I wonder whether the retail establishments, were sort of drowned out by everybody else. I don't. I just think that a public hearing process that involved all these stakeholders is really the right thing to do, and I think that that's just a really long. Process. And finally, I would say, I heard a comment from Jack Galante, and then also from, I don't remember who it was. Sorry, I missed the name. About why are we doing this? And when I put that question at the top of my list, and I spoke to Brandon about it, it was sort of a kind of an interesting question, like, why are we doing this? And I think when we talk about the parking, the paid parking program, we can specifically identify two reasons why we do this. One is to raise funds, and one is to, from my perspective, to sort of change the traffic flow and better the traffic flow downtown and prevent people from scanning around for parking spots. Those are two really clear deliverables on a different large program that we can sort of condense into basically 5 words. Why are we doing a paid parking program? And I really struggle with, this program and why are we doing this? I'd like to see, I know that we'll have this discussion next month, but I'd like to see, staff or the council come up with 1 or 2 sentences that says, why are we doing this? What do we hope to gain, from the project? And I'm not sure that we're there yet. So I would certainly be willing to sort of defer this until we have a strategic planning conversation. Thank you.
I don't have a problem with that recommendation. Does the council members want to weigh in on that topic?
Karen, I do.
Go ahead.
Yes, I think it's premature to send it to the Planning Commission at this time. We're just about to, or next month, we will be embarking on the commercial guideline review and the residential guideline review with a professional group to guide us through that. How do we want our downtown to look? How do we want our residential area to look? How do we want it to function? And all of those things too, depending on what solutions come up with, will entail general plan, local coastal plan, and coastal plan. So why would we want to bump this ahead when we have this more thorough process coming up in the very near future? And secondly, I really don't want to look at this outside of that very long list of priorities that we have. Jeff brought up parking. That was one very important part. And, all of those projects made it onto that list for a reason. I don't think this should leapfrog ahead at this point.
Right, recognizing that's the third person that kind of concurs. The rest of the board, council members, what are your thoughts, briefly?
I concur.
Okay. Carrie?
I understand all these points. I mean, one reason why it's here is because the ad hoc committee spent a lot of time and effort coalescing data and comments. And I don't want to lose that momentum of work that you, Dave, and Bobby did. So the reason it's here is because, a lot of people say you have an ad hoc, what's the outcome? Well, the outcome is taking it to the next level, right? So I just want to clarify, that's one reason why it's here. I understand that it does really dovetail into the general plan, and having these consultants take a look at the overall general plan of the business community, and then maybe addressing parklets is the way to go. So I'm willing to defer to next month as well.
Is that noted? We do that. We're receiving a report. I don't think there's any specific action intended. It was just general direction. I hear general direction. And I would defer this to more extended debate about this and other priorities next month. Chip, Brian, do you concur with my assessment? No motion necessary, just general consensus.
Yes, this is Brian. I agree.
General consensus is actually redundant, so I apologize. Okay, so we concur, then we will discuss this again in much detail in the next month, guaranteed. Okay, finally, item 11 is resolution 2022-016, updating the at-will unrepresented miscellaneous and police management pay schedule / salary schedule. And Maxine, I think you're handling this one, am I correct?
I am. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. This is just an administrative item that we have to process since you just approved Chip's 5th amendment to his employment agreement. This just updates the salary schedule to reflect his new salary. And pursuant to our Muni Code and CalPERS, every time that there's a change to salary, we have to update our salary schedule. So this is just an administrative item.
Maxine, I appreciate that. Good way to come to an end of the meeting, briefly. Council, any questions of Maxine? I don't see anybody in the public with a concern with this item they'd like to address. Not seeing anyone. To bring it back to council for direction. Possible motion. Possible motion.
Yes,
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-16, updating the at-will miscellaneous and police management pay schedule and salary schedule.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Could we get the roll call, please?
Councilmember Barron.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito.
Yes.
Councilmember Tice.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards.
Yes.
And Mayor Potter.
Aye.
Motion passes. Vote is unanimous.
All righty. Before we go into closed session, then, is there any other items that the public or the council would like to have placed on future agendas that seem to already be cluttered? I don't see any. All right, then we will adjourn to closed session. If there's any substantive action taken, we'll be reporting out next month or next week, next time we meet. Okay. Why don't we take a 10-minute bio?
Mayor, this is Brian. I need to announce the closed session.
All right, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And then we also need to ask for public comment if there's any. So the closed session item is a conference with legal counsel, existing litigations pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. The name of the case is GTE Mobile Net of California Limited Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless versus Carmel-by-the-Sea. The case number is with the United States District Court for the Northern District of California, and the case number is in the agenda. And you should now ask if there's public comment.
Is there any public comment now that we've clarified why we're going into closed session? Recognizing there was already one comment under general comments to this item. All right, I don't hear any. Okay, we'll close the public comment period, adjourn to closed session 10 minutes from now, which would be, let's make it, say, 10:05 to go 9. What time is that for you? 7:05 then?
Yeah. 7:05.
Okay. All right, guys, we'll see you back in a few minutes.